Good evening, friends. Uh, to introduce myself, I'm Pallavarajan, representing PMS Bazaar. And among us today, we have Mr. Aniruddha Sarkar, who's a CIO and portfolio manager for Quest Investment Advisors. Hi, Aniruddha. Thanks for joining in. And
Yeah,
today,
thanks, Pallav.
on behalf of PMS Bazaar and Quest Investment Advisors, it is my pleasure to welcome you all for the another insightful session organized by PMS Bazaar. And Mr. Aniruddha will take us through an interesting presentation on the topic. Is your portfolio ready for new growing India, balancing old and new economy? So before I hand over to Mr. Aniruddha, I would like to give a quick note about Quest Investment Advisors and a small note about Mr. Aniruddha Sarkar as well. So Mr. Aniruddha Sarkar is a CIO and portfolio manager at Quest Investment Advisors since February 2020. He brings with him over 14 years of experience in the capital markets with diverse role managing money for investors across PMS, AF and advisory services. He has an eye for sector themes and has been instrumental in catching many themes early on in their life cycle over the years. So prior joining to Quest, he was with IFL Group companies for over 11 years and he was the portfolio manager for IFL Multicap PMS since its inception in 2014 where he had generated industry leading performance over the 5 years till December 2019. And PMS Bazaar has recognized IFL Multicap PMS as one of the best performing PMS for the calendar year 2019. And still it is one of the best performing PMS. And about Quest Investment Advisors, Quest Investment Advisors is 100% Indian equity focused specialist in the portfolio management space. Founded by Mr. Ajay Sheth in the late 1980s, they have been in the Indian capital markets for over 3 decades. They began their journey as provider of high quality bespoke equity research in the mid cap and small cap space for FIs, mutual funds, and other institutional investors. In October 2007, they started their PMS offering. Their flagship PMS scheme has a vintage of more than 13 years and delivered 16.36% return against the benchmark Nifty 500 return of 7.25%, which is a significant outperformance. And not just since inception, if you take even a shorter period, being it 1 month or 3 months, or even 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year, across all the period, it has been consistently performing good and it has delivered much better and higher than the benchmark Nifty 500. They manage about 1,700 crore with more than 1,000 clients spanning family offices, corporate, HNI, and NRA clients. So more than the business, on behalf of PMS Bazaar, I would like to congratulate and appreciate Quest Foundation towards their responsibility to the society. Over 65 crore rupees were spent on social initiative by Best Foundation in the last 7 years. Hats off to Best Foundation. So with that inspiring note, I would like to hand over the forum to Mr. Aniruddha.
Yeah, thanks, Pallav, and a warm welcome to all my investors who are at this point of time. They are online and we are engaging in this particular interesting discussion. And I'm sure at the end of the presentation, I'm sure there'll be some questions from the participants, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions on the market or any other, the market outlook. But before I take up the particular theme, which is for the day, which is your portfolio ready for the new India? I would like to take a couple of minutes to just look back and reflect on what has happened in the last 1 year. Because I believe that last 1 year has been a period wherein some of the best experiences of our market has been there. And these are something which very rarely you get a chance to experience everything in one single year. Now, this was so what I'm going to just discuss. These were some of the pointers which I had shared with my investor letter, which I had written end of last year, and I'll just take some points from those. In which the first thing which I believe we have learned in the last year is that you cannot prepare for a black swan event. Now, we have seen there are too many people who get very cautious about the market. That what if the next fall happens? What if the next financial crisis happens? But I think, waiting for the next big fall will not do us any good. And I think in 2020, when we began the year, I doubt any of us were aware that we'll go through such a big ups and downs in one single year. So the idea is that you cannot prepare for a black swan, because black swans are meant to be coming when no one expects it. And since you cannot be prepared for it, there's no point in getting extra cautious for it. The other big learning which we have seen in last year, in fact, that was one of my statements in the somewhere in the middle of last year, is that all the beer cycles, they come to an end. If you're talking about the beer markets of 99 or of 2008 or of the last year, I think, all of them have come to an end. Only difference is how they come to an end is always different each time. So it's not like, if a beer phase is there, it's going to be kind of hurting us for a very long period. It's just that, you have to kind of sustain through it. You have to maintain your investment style and the discipline. And I think it all comes to an end. The other very important learning of last year, and I think that is something which will get reflected in the portfolios which you have, is that you need to focus on the company fundamentals. As otherwise, there are too many things to kind of, keep looking at on an everyday basis. Ultimately, what we have seen is that, companies with sound fundamentals will sail through the tide. And in fact, we have seen that, companies which are being managed by managements who have gone through the different business cycles have actually taken the company higher and higher. And after each crisis, they have emerged much stronger than before. So it's all about being in the right company and focusing on the company fundamentals. Sometimes I've seen, people discuss too much of the macros. They spend too much of the time on the macros, and many of the macro factors are actually beyond your control. So things which are beyond your control, it doesn't make sense for us to spend too much time. Company fundamentals are something, which we can have a better handle on, and it's better to kind of spend, I would say, 80% of your time on understanding the companies you are owning or you want to own, rather than focusing too much on the macro picture. Another important learning, which is an extension of this, is that you need to bet on the management's past track history, and that actually I'll be discussing subsequently also, because that forms one of the cornerstones of our investment philosophy. Finally, one last learning was that don't pay too much attention to the everyday price movements. And I think that's a tendency which typically all of us have, which is focusing on the price movements which happen every day. But ultimately, I think in the long run, it's evident that the daily price movements have no impact. If we just take an example of an investor, who had entered the market in January of last year, and he would have invested in the market and he would have hibernated for the one full year, and he saw his portfolio in January of this year, he would have seen his portfolio was higher by 15-20%. But we know what went in the entire year. So it's like, if you don't pay too much attention on the swings in the market on a daily basis, definitely you will have a much better peace of mind. And that is what, I think all advisors and experts in the industry have been always advising on. So these are some basic, the learnings which I want to share. Now coming back, to the discussion of today, and I'll just share the presentation. So I've just put across, some slides which will help me to kind of take you through. So these were the learnings which I was talking about, and it's there on the presentation. So we'll be happy to share it also with our investors at any subsequent point of time. Now, this slide which is there on the screen, it actually captures my last two investor letters which I had sent to investors. And in a very, I would say, summarized format, it actually shows our level of optimism on India. And I would say it's not based on just because the markets are moving up, but it's based on actual fundamentals on the ground. Because we believe that, ultimately you need to base your, all your outlook on the numbers, and you cannot be just building on the hope. So we believe that, and this was something which was happening even before the budget. So if you see the December end investor letter, we said that the biggest risk for investors over the next 5 years would be if they go underweight on Indian equities. And I think the budget was a very good supportive point, which gave us the confidence that we are on the right track. And the one which we believe that, people kept on saying that, budget is nothing, but it's just a statement of the accounts of the government. But we believe that, the budget 2021, it showed the direction in which the government wants to take India over the next 48 to 60 months. Now, the topic for today was that, how do you blend your portfolio, taking into account the old economy and the new economy which lies ahead? To be honest, I believe that we didn't have this opportunity, at least in the last 8-10 years. There have been times in the last 8-10 years wherein a particular part of the economy was doing well and the other part of the economy was not doing well. So there were times wherein the infra and the cyclicals were doing well, whereas the other part of the non-cyclicals, or say the export-oriented companies, were not doing well. Then there was a time when the export-oriented companies were doing well, or maybe the expensive the consumer stocks were doing well, or the consumer part of the market was doing well, but the infra and the capex cycle part of the market was not doing well. At this point of time, to be honest, it's a golden opportunity for all of us, because we believe that this type of a super cycle in India has not been seen in the last 8-10 years. Now, why we believe this confidence is there is purely because, the pointers which we have just put across. First of all, there's going to be a big private and public capex cycle, which is going to happen. And I think there is enough evidence of capex cycle picking up both at the private side as well as the public side. In fact, the announcements from the government over the last couple of months, and also which was kind of substantiated in the budget, gives us the confidence that the whole infra cycle, which is the public capex, is definitely going to see a big jump in the next couple of years. Private capex is something which had already started picking up, taking advantage of the low interest rate in the economy. And if you look across sectors, across the market caps, small companies, mid-sized companies, and the large-sized companies, I think we are seeing new capacity additions across the spectrum of the industry. One big influencer of the capex picking up is the real estate sector, and this has been our view in the last 1 year that the worst is over for the RE sector in India. The real estate sector is something which we believe, the worst is over. And that also reflects in our portfolio positioning, which we have done in the last 1 year, which we'll discuss subsequently. So real estate is actually a big driver of the demand, both on the demand side as well as the supply side, wherein, your demand for cement goes up, your demand for the home improvement goes up, your paint companies goes up, cement and the steel scaffolding. So everything, it's like across the board. In fact, it has its repercussions even in the commercial vehicle side, wherein the demand for the commercial vehicles also pick up. So real estate is one of the big triggers, which we believe definitely is picking up. We have seen on-ground transactions also improving. People who are sitting on the fences, they have also started, making the transactions. And definitely with the government focus and push for real estate, I think it's a cycle which is definitely going to pick up. The other interesting part, which is contributing to our confidence on the private and to the private capex cycle, is post the pandemic, India has definitely emerged as an alternative to China to become a manufacturing hub. And I think this potential of India to become a manufacturing hub is not just limited to the pharma or the API, which was earlier, but I think now it is getting transformed to sectors as vast as specialty chemicals, the small industrials, auto ancillaries across the basket. In fact, textiles was always considered that, textile, India has lost the bus, and Bangladesh and Vietnam has been kind of taking the big pie from China. But if you look at the budget announcement, I think, the government has announced a significantly large allocation to set up the textile parks in India. And all these will definitely go a long way in setting up the manufacturing hub in India. The other part is the incentives which the government is giving under the production-linked incentives scheme, which is going to give a big boost to your electronic manufacturing, the mobile phone manufacturing, LED manufacturing, appliances manufacturing in the country, and definitely even the small industrial units. And this is definitely going to be a very big reason for the capex to pick up in the country. Balance sheets of corporates are something which definitely have improved a lot in the last 1 year. And that is, again, another factor, which is adding to our confidence that the balance sheets are in a much stronger position at this point of time. And taking advantage of the low interest rate environment, they will be in a position to definitely do the capex at a much favorable interest rate environment. So this is something, which I just mentioned about the private and public capex is something we have not heard or seen in the last 5 to 6 years, wherein, there has been so much of optimism in the private space to do the capex in the different sectors. Now, this is one part. So, the topic which was there, the old economy and the new economy. So these are the sectors which I'm talking about, which is going to be a mix of the old economy and the new economy, which is going to participate. So infra, the real estate, these were considered the old economy pieces. Your electronic manufacturing, your textiles, these are all again, the electronic manufacturing is the new economy, textiles is again the part of the old economy. Financials is something, coming to the next point, which is the financials. Now, financials is something which we believe is definitely going to see the big upside over the next couple of years. And that confidence is coming from the fact that the balance sheets of the whole financial system in the country is definitely at a best health it could be in the last 10, 15 years. And if you look at the net NPA figures, definitely across the basket of the banks, they have gone down from as high as 6% to 2.5%. The other announcements which are there in the budget about the PSU banks being merged and setting up just a handful of the PSU banks, which will become the biggest banks in the country, definitely that gives us the confidence that you will find much more efficiencies in the PSU bank space, which has always been an issue in the whole banking system in the country. And at the same time, as I mentioned earlier, the leverage on the balance sheets of corporates has definitely decreased. And that is again giving us a confidence that there will be significant pickup in the loan growth, considering the debt equity of corporate India is at almost last 8-10 years, the bottoms. So this gets us to the other part of the old economy, which is your financials and the PSU banks, which we believe is definitely going to be a big participant in the next couple of years if you have to make wealth in that space. The other new part of the economy is the IT sector. Now, IT sector is something which I think 2030 has been preponed to 2020. Now, why I say that is because most of the IT budgets of corporates who are looking at upgrading their IT infrastructure were of the view that those upgrades would have been coming somewhere 4 or 5 years down the line, and they would be spread over the next 4 to 5 years. Now, because of the pandemic, what has happened is companies have understood the need to be online because your employees, your customers are all online. So you have no other option but to be there in a stronger way. The IT budgets of most companies across the globe has increased, and that is leading to a huge jump in the IT expenditure, which we are seeing. And that is evident from the number of the new large clients with which Indian IT companies have been having on board. If you look at the earnings of the last 6 to 9 months in Indian corporates, I think the number of deals which they have announced is at its record highs. That is giving us a confidence that India has actually been into that phase of the new Y2K movement, wherein you will see a high teens to early 20s earnings cycle happening in the IT companies. And these tech companies in the last 4 or 5 years were growing at single digits. So you're seeing an exponential jump from a single digit earnings growth to high teens and early 20s earnings growth. And that is going to lead to a significant multiple expansion. A large part of that multiple expansion has already happened. But the next leg of multiple expansion will happen in the next couple of years as you see this earnings cycle sustaining on a high base. Because right now the base has been very small. So on that low base, you are seeing a high earnings cycle. But over the next couple of years, as you see this high teens earnings growth continuing, you will find that this IT multiple expansion has been a constant way. The other interesting part, which was announced in the budget, which gives us definitely confidence, is that government is now looking at the privatization. Earlier they were only talking about the divestment of their PSUs, but now they are talking about privatization. And one interesting part of that is they want to increase the value of the PSUs before they decide to sell those. So that is something which definitely gives us a lot of opportunity to participate in many of the PSUs which are there, because if you look at the PSU basket as such, the surprising part is that, we all know that PSUs are there across all the sectors, but their market cap share has gone down from 31% in 2009 to as low as 8% as of now, which is showing that there's a huge scope for a significant value unlocking in the whole PSU basket over there. Finally, the other new sector wherein we believe there's an opportunity is definitely the chemicals, specialty chemicals, auto ancillaries, the healthcare industry, and definitely industrial manufacturing. And these are all some things which is again a part of your whole China Plus One strategy, which I think it's an old wine in a new bottle, which is like, earlier we used to call it the Make in India. Now we call it Atmanirbhar Bharat. But I think this time around, we have the intention as well as the execution happening on the ground. So Make in India was more like a intention, but we did not see much of an action on the ground. This time around, we are seeing action on the ground in addition to intention. And that is definitely giving us confidence. And that confidence is also coming from the fact that, when we interact with companies across sectors, we are seeing that there has been a huge shift in the optimism level of companies across market caps and across sectors, which we have not seen at least in the last 5 to 6 years. So to summarize, what lies in the old economy and the new economy, and how your portfolio should be positioned, we believe that there is enough option to participate in the infra space. There is enough option to participate in the IT space. There's enough opportunity in the financial space. And definitely your PSUs, chemicals, auto ancillaries, these are some of the baskets which we believe that there's enough opportunity over there. Having said that, as I said that, it all boils down to what you pick up, because, sectors could be 5 to 6, but ultimately what you pick up within that sector makes the big difference. So that is one part of, where we see the opportunity lying in the market. And that is the reason why our confidence level has been at, I would say, at all-time highs in the last several years. And if I come to the strategy part of how we look at, constructing the portfolio, our portfolio, and that has been my approach over the years. And at Quest, we have been following it over the last 13 years of our PMS strategy, is to have a sector agnostic approach when we are looking at building up the portfolio, because ultimately we look at the outsized earnings potential of the company before we try to take a bet on the company. One important part of our strategy is trying to mix the top down with a bottom up approach. Like all those sectors which I mentioned right now, there could be 5, 6 sectors wherein we see a huge potential. But what really matters is within that top-down approach, what you actually pick up makes the big difference. You could be actually picking up the right sector, but picking up the wrong company in the sector, and that will make a hell lot of difference in your end results. Just to take you as an example, so sector rotation. Now, this whole top-down and bottom-up, the mix which we try to do is kind of an extension of our basic thesis of sector rotation. Now, we know that, all the sectors do not have the same earning cycle. Different sectors go through the different earning cycle during different times of the economic cycle. And definitely being in the right sector at the right time with the right allocation makes the big difference to your portfolio returns. So I'll give you an example of one of the sectors, the top-down approach which we took, and how we decided within that sector about the bottom-up ideas. Now, in the last 1 year, we have been overweight on the whole auto sector. But if you look 8-10 months back, if you would have told anyone that, auto sector, I want to start making an allocation, I think it was kind of the worst sector you could even think of, because, everyone was kind of, auto. So whatever negative could be happening for the auto sector was happening. Sales were not there. BS4 to BS6 transition was happening. Inventory levels were at all-time highs. Demand environment was kind of, there was no visibility where the demand is going to come from. And the whole auto industry was coming from 2018-19, the rough patch of 18-19, wherein the whole auto industry was going through a horrible patch. Now, having said that, all these negatives were getting factored into the valuation of the auto companies. Whether we talk about the OEMs or we talk about the auto ancillaries, they were at historical bottom on the valuation front. Now, we picked up some of the OEM companies like your Maruti, Eicher, Escorts at almost 1 to 2 times below the standard deviation of their last 5-10 years historical average. So that gave us a confidence that the downside looks limited at this point of time. Similarly, we picked up some auto ancillary companies like Varroc and Endurance at 6-7 P multiple. And those normally quote at around 15 to 16 P multiple. Now, the risk reward was definitely in favor of it. And that gave us a confidence that, the downside looks limited from this point of time. Post that, if you move forward around 8-9 months, the large companies, the OEMs which we had picked up, they gave us like a 50, 60, 70% return. And the auto ancillary companies gave us like a 150 to 250% return. Now, definitely, we picked up a sector which, as a sector in that year, which you can see on your chart in front of you, as a sector, it gave us like a 13% return. The index return was 13%. But the companies which we picked up, it actually outperformed the industry returns in the last 1 year. Now, this is about giving an example about picking up the right stock in the sector. Another part of it is that if we are bullish on autos as a sector, it does not mean that we continue to hold those companies which we have entered. Because many a times what happens is that there could be that we are bullish on a sector, but right now the companies which we are holding, maybe on a valuation front, they are looking fairly valued. So at that point of time, what means that if we believe there's a better option in the industry at that point of time, we would be happy to make that switch. To give you an example of what actually we have done in our portfolio in the last 1 year, post the sharp up move which we had seen in the auto OEMs which we had picked up. So, for example, from entering at around 4,800 and when we had exited at around 7,000 odd level, at that point of time, we continued to be bullish on the passenger vehicle space, but we found a better value in a Tata Motors at around 120 odd levels. Now, that was a switch which definitely made sense because you're moving from a fairly valued company to an attractively valued company within the same sector. So I'm maintaining my sectoral allocation, but I'm changing the company's components composition within that sector. Post our switch, Maruti has been hovering at around 8-10% of our exit, whereas something like a Tata Motors has given us like a 150 to 180% return. So definitely maintaining the same allocation in the sector, we have picked up a company which has given a supernormal return and definitely switched the right stock with the right company. Similarly, for Escorts, we had picked it up around 850 odd levels, and around 1400 odd levels is wherein we believe the company was looking fairly valued. If I have to take my numbers and our Quest estimates and trying to factor in what lies in the next 12-18 months. But we wanted to maintain our allocation for the agri side of the auto. So we switched our allocation to M&M at around 550 to 600 odd levels. Post our switch, Escorts is hovering at that same price where we exited, whereas something like an M&M has given us like a 40-50% upside. So the whole idea of giving these examples was that though as a top-down approach, we have been bullish on the auto space, but with a bottom-up approach, we have been selecting companies within that space and also making that switch between the companies in the same sector, which has definitely added alpha in the portfolio of the clients. Coming on to the next part, which is very, very important for me, is the risk-adjusted return. And this is something I keep telling investors that one needs to focus on the risk-adjusted return and what risk I'm taking in your portfolio to give you what return. Because ultimately, for me, what is very important is the consistency of returns, because I do not want my investors to get a 40%, 50% return in 1 year, and next year your money is down by 20-30%. I would be rather happy to kind of, underperform in a year when the markets are flying, but outperform in a year when the markets are down. Because for me, consistency is very, very important. An important part of our strategy for constructing the portfolio is to be agile between the sectoral allocations, which is an extension of whatever I said in the last half an hour. And an extension of that is being agile with the cash levels also in the portfolio. So this is something which I believe is a very big USP for us at Quest, which is ensuring that if we believe that the markets look uncertain or there is enough indications that the markets are very primed to fall and there is uncertainty or there are some negative events happening, we would not hesitate to go to 15-20% cash levels in the portfolio. In the last 1 year, we have definitely have times when we are sitting with 18, 20, 22% cash in the portfolios. Equally important is getting the money back into the market, because imagine I had been sitting with 15, 20% cash all the way from April to June, July, August, September. Whatever gains I would have got by increasing the cash level would have been kind of much more than that, would have been eaten away by not being back in the market in the right time. So getting back in the market is equally important. So that agility factor is something which I believe is a big USP for us. And the last 6, 7 years, I think the world economy has shown us that, there are definitely some parts of your portfolio stocks which you would not want to touch for the next 4 or 5 years. But there is a big part of the market which you would not hesitate to kind of, take profits off, because, and also stay in cash, because the agility factor is something which we believe is definitely going to make a big differentiator in the portfolio performances. Uh, Moving on to an important slide for us, and this is something which I would say, I keep telling investors, because I keep getting this question, when investors interact with me, that, so what is your style of investing? Is it the value side of the market or the growth side of the market? I say that, wherever I find the mispriced opportunity, I would not hesitate to put my hands there, because ultimately it's about finding the mispriced opportunity and about finding where the alpha creation opportunity is there. If I had been just a value investor, I would not have been buying a Bajaj Finance or a iShares or a Maruti of the world. If I would have been just a growth investor, I would not have been buying a Tata Motors or an SBI. In my portfolios, I have SBI, Tata Motors, Bajaj Finance, and the growth stocks. So wherever I find the mispriced opportunity, I would not hesitate to kind of have that allocation. So, and it's very easy to actually pick up the growth stocks, because in growth stocks, you don't need to do anything. Company which is growing at 15, 20%, just go and make an allocation there, because, that becomes a core of your portfolio. The difficult job is finding the value side of the market, because when the value becomes a value trap, it's very difficult. And I think in the last 8, 10 years, there have been enough cases of value stocks becoming the value traps, and investors have lost faith in that. But I believe that if you are entering a value stock at an inflection point, definitely there's a huge upside which one can participate. And I would be happy to share that 2 large company allocations in our portfolio, which is SBI and Tata Motors, have given us supernormal returns in the last 6 to 8 months, purely because we were able to enter it at an inflection point. So we picked up SBI like at around 160, 165 levels, which was the rock bottom. And you were getting the company at almost 0.4 price to book. And, you're getting the bank free of cost, because that was kind of, similar to the valuation of its subsidiaries. Similarly, Tata Motors at 115 to 120 was like, so what can go worse at that price? And both these stocks have given us like a 150% plus return in the last 6 to 8 months. So definitely it's very difficult to pick up the value side of the market. And if I make an extension of this discussion, what I discussed initially about, the opportunity which lies in the PSU space, I think there's enough value which lies even now in the PSU basket. But having said that, I would like to warn that you cannot go and buy any PSU out there, because when those PSUs turn the value traps, they will hurt you like anything. So it's very important to select which PSUs you're buying to participate in the upside in the earnings or the multiple expansion which will happen. An important part of constructing our portfolio is the central part which you're seeing, which is the P multiple expansion. Now, this basically comprises of sectors and companies who are going through a major earnings upcycle. Either the reason could be some external factors or it could be some internal factors. External factors could be like something what I mentioned about the whole China plus one strategy happening, which has given us confidence in a super cycle in your chemicals and specialty chemicals. Or it could be some internal factors wherein the company has improved its efficiencies and the company has improved its whole composition of its business, and there is going to be a major earnings upcycle. So whenever we see sectors and companies wherein the earnings is going through a major upcycle, the ROEs are going to expand, the margins are going to improve, we see a major P expansion which happens in that space. If you ask me, in the last 1 year, the whole IT sector has actually gone through a major PE expansion. So what has changed is, the IT companies, which I was mentioning earlier, the IT companies were growing at single digit PE, and in the last 1 year, their earnings has gone up in the high teens and even in some cases the early 20s. And the outlook remains that over the next 12, 18, 24 months, they will be able to sustain the high teens earnings growth. Now, because of that, the large cap companies like Infosys and TCS, who were earlier getting a 18, 20 P, now have seen a P multiple expansion going up to around 25 to 26. The next rung of companies like your HCL, Techem, Wipro, who are getting a 14 to 15 P, have now started enjoying that 18 to 20 P multiple. And the mid cap and small cap IT companies, which used to historically trade at around 8 to 11 P multiple, they are now putting at around 14 to 16 P multiple. So basically, a multiple expansion has happened along with earnings growth, margin improvement because of the cost savings which has happened. Most of the IT companies have seen around almost like a 400 bips improvement in the margin. So all these has translated to your multiple expansion in the whole space. So this is a broad strategy how we construct the portfolio. Now coming to the most important part, which is what we see in a company when we invest. And this is something which really is very important and which I mentioned in my initial discussion that the old economic companies and the new economic companies, which we believe the potential is, it all boils down to what you are picking ultimately, because the company you pick up will make the big difference. If you pick up the wrong company in the right sector, you will be unhappy after 1 year when you see others have done so well picking up the right company in that space. So for us, what is very, very important is understanding the business, what we are putting our hands on. And for that, what we understand is that if you know the simple chain of where the money is coming, where the money is going, and how much money the company is making in the process, if you understand this whole chain, I think your job is done. And on top of it, who is running the show is very, very important. So that brings you to the most important part, which is the management of the company, which was one of the learnings which I said in my initial discussion, that one of the learnings of the last 1 year has been that you need to bet on the right management if you want to really make wealth. Because ultimately, our experience over the last 25 to 35 years at Quest has been that if you bet on the right management, he can give you supernormal returns in an average company. And if you bet on the wrong management, a very good business can give you underperformance in spite of being in the right sector. So the management is very, very important. How the management has kind of taken the company through the different business cycles. If he's able to innovate the products of the company, if he's able to kind of give enough confidence in his shareholders, in his customers, in his employees, that the company is going to go through the ups and downs with a very strong face. That is something which really makes a difference in the companies which one needs to invest in. Ethical issues of the management is something definitely is a big check for us, and that is something we definitely lay a lot of emphasis on. And I think post a company passes this checklist of the management, then the usual suspects come, which definitely I think every investor or every fund manager he sees is the financials of the company, which is the company growing its ROE, or is it stable ROE business? Is the margin profile stable or improving? Is the leverage on the books within the comfortable zone? Now, when I say the leverage, the first thing my investors say is that, you should invest into companies which don't have any leverage. Now, I say that, some leverage is good. Not having any leverage means that, different industries will have different parameters. Like if you're looking at an IT company, IT companies won't have any leverage. But if you're looking at an infra or the RE sector, definitely some leverage is required to grow. So having the right leverage in the balance sheet is very, very important. And that is something we try to see, that it's not over leveraged business. And definitely cash flow generation is very, very important for us. And I think the importance of cash flow has become all the more important in the last 1 year, in which we have seen that companies who do not have strong cash flows have definitely seen very, very bad times in the last 1 year. And I think the importance of strong cash flows, even the managements of most companies are now aware of. So these are some of the basic things which we see in a company. Some things which we don't see, which we will avoid, completely companies we will avoid is like, which anyways, which I mentioned that, companies having any ethical or past the red flags is something a strict no for us. So misallocation of capital is actually a very interesting point, which is actually a very, I would say, soft part which gets unnoticed because, many a times misallocation of capital is something which is not on the face of it. And in our portfolio, there have been a couple of companies which we have picked up when the company has improved its capital allocation policy, and post our entry, the company has given us supernormal returns. So definitely there are inflection points in the market wherein we need to look with a different with a different eye when any of these issues which have been a negative in the past, they have shown any improvement. Because when the improvement happens, there's going to be a supernormal P multiple expansion. So coming to our portfolios, we have two portfolios. So this is just, I'll spend a couple of minutes. So we have two portfolios which we run at Quest. One is the Quest flagship PMS, which has a long 13-year history. And I can happily say that there are very few PMSs in the country which have a long 13-year history. And over the last 13 years, it has given like a 16, 17% annualized return, which definitely is kind of almost like a 10 to 11% annualized outperformance over the benchmark returns. The other strategy which we run is the Quest multi strategy. This also has a decent history of around 6.5 years. And over the last 6.5 years, it has again given an annualized return of around 14 to 15%. So these data are as of end of January. If I have to look the data as of yesterday, they are around 15.5% annualized returns. The difference between the Quest flagship and the Quest multi is that Quest flagship is biased towards the large caps, which you can see it has a 60% allocation in the large caps. And the Quest multi is biased towards the mid and small, wherein you'll find a similar 60% allocation to the mid and small cap and a smaller allocation to the large cap. For me, very important is the sectoral allocation. And it's not that, I want to hug the benchmark for the sectoral allocations. And that comes from my initial part of the discussion in which I said that wherever our confidence is highest, we would make a higher allocation there. And where the confidence is less, we will have a much lower allocation. So we do not want to hug the benchmark for the sectoral allocation. Just to give an example, though our benchmark has a 33% financials, but we have a underweight stance over there. And though the benchmark has a 5 to 6% into pharma and healthcare, we have a 15% allocation there. Benchmark does not have much of the chemicals. And as I mentioned, we are overweight on the chemical space. We have like a 12, 13% exposure there. So wherever we believe there's a confidence that this sector is going to go through an earnings upcycle, we will make an allocation there. Now, if you ask me that, I spoke about the opportunity in the whole, the real estate, home improvement, infra side, how does our allocation look? If I have to mix my allocation of industrials, the real estate, cement, and the home improvement, and if I take our allocation for the from SBI, which is again a cyclical part of the financial, we would have roughly 18 to 20% allocation, which is participating in this particular theme. As we speak, definitely this allocation is increasing, and we believe there is enough opportunity in this whole space across the 4 or 5 sectors which I've mentioned about making a significant alpha over the next couple of years. So these are just some of the names which we picked up in the last 1 year, and how they have kind of given us supernormal returns, which again highlights the fact that you can make a huge alpha if you pick up the right stock in the right sector. So definitely, as you can see from the column of the returns, the percentage return is definitely much, much higher than what those sectoral indices have given in the last 1 year. So I think with that, I would come to an end of my discussion, and I would be happy to have any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Aniruddha. Thanks for your insightful session, and also thanks for taking us through your product, your strategy, your style, your investment process, and so on. Before I move on to Q&A session, I would like to set up a context on this Q&A. Basically, what we do is that during the registration, we send a confirmation link to the participant, and then we try to collate their questions. So we give a priority to those questions initially, and then we move on to the forum. We hardly have 15 minutes for Q&A session. What we can do, we'll try to address as much as possible. If not, if any questions is not been addressed, so then I will share these questions to you and would request you to send across, address this question, and I will send back to the respective participants.
We'll be more than happy to answer them.
So wonderful. I appreciate that. So before moving to the forum question, I have one question. What I've noticed is that in the year 2020, there has been a team expansion at Quest Investment Advisor. So if you can able to throw some light on that, be interested to listen on that as well.
So basically the last 1 year that, so we say that, Quest is now evolving, and, we actually say it's a startup, though we have a long history of last 35 years. But, if you look at the energy and the, the kind of the energy level within Quest, I think it's at its all-time high. And, definitely we have had additions in the last 1 year across the different business verticals. If I have to talk about the investment team, the sales and the operation team, across our investment research. So we have definitely expanded our team in the last 1 year. And I think that is definitely being visible in the portfolio, the returns as well. And as well, definitely, investors are also appreciative of the new Quest, which they are seeing up there. So I think it's like a change for the better.
Great. So the next question, most of the investors have this question in their mind. Markets have recovered from the crash of March 2020 to scale new highs at an unprecedented pace, has taken everyone by surprise. At these heights, you think the markets are sustainable?
I was just seeing some of the questions which have come even in the question board. I think, there are several questions which are on a similar line. Correct. Wherein investors are saying that, doesn't the market look expensive? Should we sell and stay on cash? So I think, this is something I've been getting this question for the last 6 months, to be honest. And investors have been asking me from 11,000 that, should we sell and stay on cash? So my answer has been, and I maintain that answer even now, that don't look at the index, look at the earnings and look at the companies which we are participating on. Even now at 15,000, to be honest, so we are buying some companies in our portfolio which are quoting at 11 to 12 P multiple, which means that the whole basket of the market is not expensive. There will be some part of the market which is expensive at 40, 50, 60 P. We don't touch those stocks. There is a part of the market which I mentioned in my discussion, which is the value side of the market, which is definitely looking attractive because one part is the value and the other part is the earnings growth, which we are seeing in that part of the market. So definitely we believe that it's not a time to stay out of the market. Yes, can we see a 8-10% fall in the market? It's very much possible because if you have gone up from 10,000 to 15,000 in a couple of months, definitely seeing a 8-10% fall is very much possible. And if I remember very well, when we had the PMS Bazaar Summit in beginning of December, end of November, similar question had come that time. And I had maintained the thing that, you cannot stay out of the market because it's not because I'm a fund manager. So I always keep telling you that, be invested. The reason is because I'm very bullish on India. And I mentioned all the reasons why, we are bullish on the whole earnings cycle in India. So our advice is don't stay out of the market, be in the right company where earnings is there, where valuation is on my side, and avoid companies where stocks are quoting at 60, 70 P, but earnings are growing at, 8-10%. So I think definitely you need to change your portfolio, which is actually a theme of our discussion today. Is your portfolio aligned for the new India? And I think that's the strategy which one needs to do, is align the portfolio as per the earnings cycle.
Great, Aniruddha. So the takeaway is that stay invested with the good quality companies.
Absolutely.
So the next question is that in both Quest flagship and your multi-cap strategy, your style is a blend of growth and value. What is the current proposition of the style in both this portfolio?
See, typically, if you see the weightages which I had mentioned, was that, roughly 35 to 45% we have in the value style, in the growth style, and around 15 to 25% we have in the value side of the market. If you ask me at this point of time, the allocation in the growth part will be roughly around 40-odd%. Allocation in the value part will be roughly around 25 to 30%. And there will be around 30-35% into the P expansion part of the market, which I highlighted in my discussion. So I would say it's broadly in line with what has been our allocation in the presentation. If you ask me, has this allocation remained same in the last 1 year? Answer is no. There was a time where almost 60% was into the growth part of the market, and a very small allocation was in the value part. Right now, the value part of the market is definitely finding more allocation in my portfolio, and the growth part is decreasing, is seeing a decreased allocation.
Great, thanks. So I'll move on to the next question. How has the portfolio changed since the beginning of the pandemic up to now? You have an active style of a sector rotation, so I'm sure you would have found opportunity along the last 1 year in various sectors.
So I think the last 1 year, if you see, I think as I mentioned that sector rotation, which has been a very important part of our strategy. I think sector rotation played out extremely well in the last 1 year. So if I have to break up the last 1 year into different periods, we had somewhere in the month of April, May, in my investor letter, I had highlighted that post this fall in the market, the rally will happen into different the buckets, bucket 1, bucket 2, and bucket 3. So bucket 1, we had put in as companies and sectors which will be kind of the immediate beneficiaries of the pandemic and the lockdown. So that time, we had allocations in the consumer basket, wherein your FMCG and consumer, which were the kind of flying off the roof. So allocations were higher over there. The second bucket, we spoke about companies and sectors wherein the pent-up demand will come in. Autos was a big part of that, and definitely we moved our allocation from the consumer part to the autos part. This is just a couple of examples I'm giving you. Post that, we said the final bucket will be the companies and sectors which will see the rally over the next 12 to 18 months, wherein that whole Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat theme will play out. And that is where right now my allocation is with regard to a bigger allocation to the chemicals, the API space, the IT space, and also the industrials. So in the last 1 year, I would say the allocation has changed depending on where we see the trend happening, and that is where I would like to have my allocation into.
Thank you. So the next question: what is your outlook for Indian markets in the coming decade relative to other emerging markets?
I think we could not have a better time to be in India. So I keep telling this to my investors that I think we are right now in the right country at the right time. And these are the same investors, when I used to talk to them last 4 or 5 years, they used to always feel very negative about India. Because I think the type of pessimism which was there all the way from 2017 to 19 was at extreme highs. So I believe India is definitely changing its perception, and this perception change has been visible even among the FIs, which is evident from the large number of FI flows we are seeing in the country. India is finding an increased allocation in the whole emerging market basket. And definitely, if you look at some of the recent the commentaries from some of the large institutional investors, they have been speaking extremely positive about increasing their allocation to India within the emerging market basket. So if you have to ask me where does India stand in the next 5-10 years, I think you will find India, I won't be surprised if India becomes an emerged country in the next 8-10 years for sure. So it's definitely going to find a big allocation within the emerging markets and evolve into an emerged country.
So wonderful. So invest in India. So I'll move to the next question from the forum. So Mr. Hemant from Bangalore have asked, you said real estate will pick up. Isn't there already an oversupply, especially commercial, given the current work from home culture, which may go beyond COVID too?
Which one? I didn't understand the question.
You said real estate will pick up.
Okay.
Isn't there an oversupply, especially on the commercial space, given the current work from home culture, which may go beyond COVID too?
So I believe the real estate sector is going to see a shift from the commercial to the residential side, because I think in the last several years, the commercial side has done well. The residential side has seen an oversupply. If you look at the last 1 year, I think there has been decent, not 1 year, just last 6 months. I think there has been enough inventories across the large cities, which has definitely seen a decline. So the inventories have definitely declined across baskets. We are seeing enough number of transactions, even in a city like Mumbai, which always people used to complain that the prices are very high. So I believe that definitely people are now understanding that, and I would say there are multiple factors which is leading to the demand in the real estate sector. One is the low interest rates. So when was the last time you saw 6.5% home loan rates? And this is something that people have never seen in their life. So when your the rental yields are 2.5% and your home loan rates are 6.5%, it becomes an attractive proposition to own a house. Definitely, it was different when the home loan rates were 8.5% and your rental yields were 2.5%. So one is the low interest rate environment. Second is, I think, in the pandemic, people have understood that you need to have a much bigger house. Ownership of the house is very, very important, because people have understood that, if you are having any cash flow issues, and you don't have enough cash flows to pay the rent, it could definitely change your equation. So people have been now focusing on owning a house. So whoever could whoever could afford. So I think ownership of house is definitely something which is picking up. And also, I believe that in the last 5 years, there have been enough number of people who have been sitting on the fence, who have been thinking that, whether to rent or to own, seeing the low interest rate, seeing the price correction, and seeing the decline in the taxes also, for the registration. I think all these factors are collectively bringing these fence sitters, who are the fence buyers, into actually becoming the owners of the house. So I believe, to summarize, the residential side of the real estate will definitely do much better than the commercial side.
Thank you, Aniruddha. So, would you like to give any closing note, Aniruddha, to the investors?
See, I believe that, I think, all of us are there in the market, and I'm sure several of the participants and also the subsequent investors who will be watching this video, they have been there in the market for the last 20, 30, 40 years, much more than, what we have been there in the market. But one thing is very clear, that, no one has made money in a country if you are pessimistic on that country. So if I'm investing in India, if I'm not bullish on my country, there's no reason I can make money. So I think definitely it means that, if you're not, you can't be bullish without the without the hard numbers and the hard facts in place. As we stand in beginning of 2021, I think we have all the right ingredients to participate in the next big cycle which India is going to see. Don't stay underinvested. That doesn't mean that we will not fall. Can Nifty 15,000 go to 13,000? Answer is yes. But that doesn't mean that, you sell everything and you stay on cash, because it will be equally important for you to put that money back into the market. Just before budget, we saw enough number of people selling and waiting for the big fall. And finally, they have entered at 14,500 or higher. So it's all about that, you be invested, be in the right companies, focus on the right portfolio allocation. Don't get into expensive stocks, because when the correction happens, expensive stocks definitely see a multiple contraction. And focus on the earnings. And that is what, we have been doing over the years. Look on the earnings and build a high earnings, high ROE portfolio. And definitely, I think India is going to surprise all of us in the next couple of years with significant earnings upcycle.
So thank you, Aniruddha. Thanks once again for taking your time and giving an insightful presentation.
It's been a very, very exciting thing to kind of, interact with investors. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions which come on the message board and which we could not answer now because of the time constraint. We'll be more than happy to answer those.
Yeah, investors and participant as committed, we will collect your question and send across to Aniruddha, which has not been addressed, and we ensure that within a week's time you get revert to those questions. And thanks for your time. Looking forward in hosting you in another such insightful session. Thank you all. Happy weekend.